And we're live, folks. Back again. This is your host of Lit Literature, JP, aka The Demon, and you are here again with the Shoutouts to talk about Rhythm of War. Rhythm! All right, so we are going to go around and introduce ourselves. We're super excited to talk about today, Part 3, Discussion 1.
You stupid Germans.
All right, let's go around.
We got Josh the Cherry,
Brett the Director,
Ben the Hitman.
Eam the Dream,
Ooh,
so Emi,
so dreamy.
Andrew the Captain. And guys, I am sorry to say that last time I came live from Urithiru, and I have been unable to escape. I am still in Urithiru, and we are now in control. The singers are now in control. So I am humming to the tune of Anticipation for our discussion of Part 3.
What does that sound like?
You got a kick. Crim off your shoulder.
Yeah, you never know if that Krim's spying on you.
I know, right?
I mean, that Kremling is spying on you. Okay. Awesome. So before we really dive into it, let me pull this poster out. The same poster we've been talking about this entire time. Here it is. Bridge 4 poster. Just a reminder, we will eventually have that Instagram post out. And when it is, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow. And Instagram is follow. Yeah, and you will be entered to get the sweet poster.
So you guys better hurry because we used to have 116 followers, and now we have 117. So
your chances are
you better hurry.
Your chances are speedily diminishing.
Yes. So I would have to say that you have a pretty good chance of winning it. So you might want to get on there and keep an eye out if you care about the poster. Only within the United States. Sorry, can't ship internationally.
Yep, good point. Okay, so I think with that said, let's get into it. And so as we start, cheers to the boy game.
Cheers.
And we're live. Oh wait, I already said that. But we're back. Yes. And
we're not live.
Yeah, I know.
we're live.
We actually had a commenter say that like early on. Do you guys broadcast this live? And I'm like, no, Jeff just like saying that.
I love saying it. I love saying it, and it's not going away. And when you think
one
about
day
it,
we might be live.
One day we might be live.
Yeah, and that way you won't have to switch things up.
Exactly. But we are back.
Once we start recording live, you're going to be like, and we're recording.
I'll change
I
it
need
then.
to say it right here. And we're back.
All right. So super excited for a few reasons. Number one, Part 3 was pretty enlightening.
Yes.
Certainly enlightening. And I'm also excited because now I could go on to reading Part 4, which, thank the heavens, I've been waiting for this.
Yes.
So anyway, let's start with the interludes because there are some juicy tidbits in these interludes. And the very first one was Vir, aka the Moash.
Moash. Ash and Moash.
Ash and Moash. And we find out, and this is pretty crazy, that because of Moash's connection to Kaladin, he is able to slightly influence. Odium can just barely influence Kaladin. And somebody who's already suffering from PTSD hardcore is now getting kind of
An extra dose of
nightmares due to Moash and good old Odium, which
Kaladin.
is very unfortunate to hear.
Yeah.
So,
Moash, more problems.
Moash, more problems.
Yeah.
That old
So
saying.
I can say, speaking of which, we have to bring back the damn Words of Radiance at some point.
Yeah, we
That's
do. We were
awesome.
gonna do it with the beginning of this book, but then we were so excited to start filming, we forgot to.
Yeah,
But
priorities, people.
priorities, we will.
Maybe for book 5, we will reintroduce the Words of Radiance. But anyway,
maybe in later chapters, I'll remember.
who knows? But the thing that I'm worried about here, listening to this, is, and thankfully it hasn't been. I don't know. It's certainly impacting Kaladin, but it hasn't seemed to like throw us off the ledge yet. But I just got a feeling that at some point it's going to catch up to us.
Yeah.
Just the gradual build up.
Yeah, he's getting like less and less sleep. And the
Yeah.
dreams like lingering, kind of like mess with him like, when he wakes up.
Right.
I mean, his mind is already stressed and broken to the point where he can't follow like his kind of passion in life, which is kind of fighting.
Yeah.
And he's not really getting
Right.
much of the needed rest that his mind needs to be able to start healing.
Yeah.
He's just being constantly attacked. Even though he's not on the battlefield, he's still on the battlefield, you know? He's still going to be very much
Especially
involved
now.
in this.
Yeah, especially now. It was almost like maybe he could recover with this vacation, but now he's the only, like, kind of like the last man standing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like
right.
it's just kind of like a repetitive cycle, right? Like he feels crappy and tired all the time, and then he's not getting any sleep because of the nightmares, but he really needs the sleep, so then it's just
Yeah.
going to continue to happen more and more. Like
hmm
it's just it sucks. Poor guy.
Right.
I know.
It's a perpetual cycle. It's a shame too because as we'll get from our second interlude, it would have been amazing to see Kaladin and a certain someone who
Yeah.
also didn't pass out in Urithiru. It would have been amazing to see those two join forces, but unfortunately that is being
That might happen
postponed
later,
for
though.
now.
Who is the other one? Lift?
Which is our
That's what I thought,
second
yeah.
Yes.
interlude
Yeah.
chapter.
Yeah.
So few awesome
Yeah.
tidbits here. First, we find out that Lift isn't affected for some reason, whether that's because she's close to the fourth ideal, a combination of that, and that she has the different power. She has a cultivation power.
instead of honors.
Yeah. Instead of Stormlight, she uses cultivation light or
There's actually
She
something.
uses, life
energy.
Yeah, she uses
which is-
life light.
that's
So there's-
cultivation.
But yeah, we learned that later
Yeah.
in this part.
Yep.
But,
I don't want to get too off track, but I'm not sure if it'll come up organically later. But I wanted to bring this point up with you guys. We've now pretty much got solid confirmation for the most part that every single person we know that went to the Night Mother or whatever actually got their powers from cultivation. So
Oh no. Everyone who cultivation decides to step in.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Night Mother will generally do the same thing where
Oh.
she gives you a boon and a curse, but
Yeah.
cultivation occasionally steps in and does something much better.
But my question is do we know that for sure? Because there's like a part of me that, do we know anybody else that has gone to see the Night Mother that actually got a boon and a curse?
There's they talk about it. So there's side characters in various interludes
Okay.
throughout the other books.
Because for a second I was wondering if maybe like really that's just kind of like an old wives' tale.
Yeah.
And that every time there's actually been legitimate instances of it that
Yeah.
cultivation steps in, but I guess not.
It's way better when cultivation steps in
Just
because
gets
the
better
boons
powers.
and the curses are terrible sounding when the Night Mother gives them to you. Like the one guy saw the entire world upside down.
Well, but he
Oh
said it
yeah,
wasn't
that's
that
right. I
bad.
forgot about
He
that.
got used to it, right? And he
God.
said it
He
wasn't
did.
even that weird for him after a
I mean,
while.
your brain will adapt,
yeah.
but that's still going to be a handicap
Yeah.
for a while.
Ah,
Like,
for
and
sure.
then there was a few other weird ones.
I forgot
that
about that,
we
yeah.
heard about, and the Night Mother, when in Dalinar's flashback, the Night Mother was like trying really hard to give him some kind of a boon and curse, kind of like a weird addiction to giving people really messed up powers. But it definitely seems a little bit better when cultivation steps in. 'Cause
Yeah.
she tends to want to cultivate you to be something else,
Yeah.
versus the Night Mother just seems to get a kick out of giving you some pretty funny.
Mhm.
Yeah, just like, oh, this will be interesting. Yeah, let's do
Oh
that.
man. Well, we're still on Lyft, so yeah.
Yeah.
I think Lyft is definitely that was one of the things where you don't quite realize what's happening until way later, because at the very end of like Lyft's like chapter is like, there's this weird ass parrot, and I want to know what the one she saves is, because she like finds one and she picks it up.
Yeah.
And it's injured, and I think it's a red one instead of
The green
the
one.
green one was
Yeah.
attacking it.
Well,
She's
the
like,
green
that is
one-
the predator.
The green one that was originally called a chicken,
Yeah.
which is actually, as
Look at
Ender
all
said,
those
a parrot, which we find out later is actually one of those weird Kremling type birds that absorb stormlight, which
Like
Yeah, it has some predator attributes too, like
Yeah.
a hawk. It had like talons and stuff. So I'm kind of picturing or envisioning like some sort of a weird mutant between like a parrot and a hawk.
Yeah,
and, like,
that's
maybe a
exactly right.
lobster Or something
So
like
who
that.
do you think the red parrot?
well, there was that guy.
the guy who
Lift,
got killed.
Yeah, Lift found that guy. We don't know who that guy was though, unless there was a hint.
Yeah, and
Was that a messenger?
Well, I
bird
think
of
it was
some
a,
sort.
I think
I'm
it was another
wondering?
one of those.
The red one.
We know that there's been 3 of those
Okay.
creatures that could do this weird stormlight thing where it absorbs light out of people.
Chichiri. Or
Yeah.
Chiri.
Chirichiri's one, but
Chiri.
Chirichiri seems more dragon-like in description.
Yeah, or like
Um,
crumbling, like a miniature. What do you call them? The big. What are the big ones that they kill?
Yeah,
Yeah, chasm
chasm
fiends. I
fiends?
almost envision it kind of like a chasm fiend, but just like elongated instead
and
of
flyer,
very-
and it's
yeah,
a
and the
flyer.
flies.
Yeah. So, but we don't know who that guy was unless there's hints that we missed, which is possible.
They did put in some hints that like she had seen him before, and he was always like older and super nice,
Ah, yeah.
and he must have been someone important if
Yeah.
the Ghostbloods felt they had to kill him.
What if he was one of those guys, those like guys made out of the
Right.
Kremlings, the Horde guys?
oh yeah.
It's possible, but
I don't think they would have
be
been.
able to kill him.
She would have made a statement about how ugly he was, or
Wasn't
tattooed
he
was, or
also
whatever, right?
a radiant?
I don't. Was he?
I
I'm not
thought the
remembering
guy
Oh.
that she says was, oh, he was a nice radiant. Like, because she sees him dead on the ground.
that. Or just in like,
Yeah.
or maybe he's
Yeah.
just comatose at that point. Then, if he was a radiant.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well,
But aside from that, how heartbreaking was it to read her part though?
I
And
know.
why she doesn't want to get she doesn't want to grow older or grow
Yeah.
up because she
Yeah.
still wants to be mom's little girl. Like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Yeah.
so sad.
It was, and that's part of the backstory
Yeah.
that we don't have a deep understanding about Lift yet. We don't know a lot of her backstory, which that was a good hint into it. So, but unfortunately, our good buddy Moraes decides to
Moraes.
capture her.
Well, he's
and-
like the hunt is on. So I was assuming that like she'd been like running from him, or like they were playing like not a game, but like she'd been trying to like run from him. But it seems like he captured her probably pretty quick.
yeah, and of course we find out what he does with that later. And stinking Venli. She learns the words right then, and she's like, "These are not accepted
Yeah.
because you're a giant piece of shit."
Manny.
She's got some growth to do.
Hey Manny, considering Venli's your favorite character, how did you enjoy reading her chapters?
We'll get there. We'll get there. So, but that is interesting because Lift was, because of this interlude, largely taken out of action for
Yeah.
the chapters that we get to read, which are very isolated to Venli, Navani, and Kaladin.
Yeah.
Which in some ways was good, and
Yeah.
in some ways wasn't, right? Like my curiosity on the other groups was still there, but it was also nice to really see Kaladin try to find his stride again.
No, I really was wanting to know what happened to Adolin. Like the whole time I'm like, when are we gonna find out what's happening?
Yeah.
I
to
bet
Adolin?
you first chapter of part 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, there was no
Yeah.
shades
Oh yeah,
marked
yeah.
No.
at
yeah,
all.
totally.
I
in
needed
this
some
section,
shade
which
in my
was
life. I know
disappointing,
I
but
wouldn't normally say that, but
So
Wait. Is Dalinar
Right.
not in? No, Dalinar's not in
Now
Shadesmar.
there
That's right.
was
yeah.
there was interesting comments that were brought up, which I want to talk about because these were from part 2, but we had some gaps in knowledge, or we missed a few things that people brought to our attention, which might help us. So the first thing is, although we knew this too, but we just weren't thinking about it or we didn't talk about it. But the first thing is that the capital of the Honor Spren, Lasting Integrity, is in Shadesmar, the same location as the Tariq people where they live in the real world, which is the Mad King runs them, and that is the bondsmith herald. I forgot his name. But the fact that those two locations overlap, Dalinar is near that. Dalinar and Jasnah in Wit are near that location in the real world. Adolin, Shallan,
In the physical
and
realm.
them are in the Shadesmar cognitive realm in the same lineup. And then that also made me think, and there's even some commentary around maybe the Tashik, and we talked a little bit about whether it was the Tashik people trying to make these shard blades, but maybe it has to actually do with the insane bondsmith herald trying to use his people to generate shard blades in that area or something along those lines. So, but it's interesting now that you know geographically those areas
they line
are
up.
aligned,
Yeah.
That definitely says to me there's going to be some big crossover between Dalinar and Posse and Adolin and Posse.
And it's also
I didn't
where
realize that.
Shallan, what's the unmade Spren?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Janat.
Shoutouts. Yeah.
Shoutouts.
She's supposedly there. Because she
Yeah.
said she needed to follow Taravangian or Dalinar or something.
Right. And so, well, Taravangian, because he's ace in her sleeve. I
Yeah.
guess,
Also,
supposedly.
since you brought that up really quick, just so people know, we generally get a lot of really good comments from the encyclopedias on YouTube. So if you guys aren't encyclopedias also, I highly recommend you check out the YouTube channel if you're listening to this somewhere else and go through some of the comments because there's a lot of like insightful stuff that a lot of our listeners share.
And they're great because our rule is when you comment,
spoilers.
Yeah, keep it to
Yeah.
the part that we're talking about, or
Yeah.
the chapters or the book that we're talking about. We always like a little extra side knowledge and things to help us through that, but just for everybody's enjoyment.
Yeah, it's
you
really
know,
cool. There's always some
absolutely.
like really good comments that I'm just like, oh yeah, I forgot about that or something like that
so
that we got wrong.
That was really cool to read because then I was like, holy cow, we knew that even because in the beginning I remember the whole scene where Shallan comes in and she actually talks about where her and I think it was even her and Pattern actually talking about how it lines up in the physical realm.
Right.
versus- and of course I'm just like, I don't know what I was doing, but I wasn't like paying deep attention to it. And as it turns out, there was big hints there about what's to come. So that's kind of cool. But that doesn't help us with our homies in Irithiru.
But before we go there, we have to talk about the last interlude, which is
The biggest.
Taravangian.
Taravangian.
So I was really happy to read this because when I read this, it gave me a little bit of like, oh, it could come. Taravangian found out the weakness. Unfortunately, I thought that this was a little bit. I was getting like super pumped when I read it. I'm like, oh, Taravangian's gonna find a way to use this against Odium, but exactly. But unfortunately, he
somehow.
doesn't really get that chance because by the time Dalinar, who's been like essentially staying as far away from Taravangian as he can, him and Renarin already found out that Renarin can't be seen. Like it changes. So Renarin even just says, he's like, nah, Odium can't really get it right when I'm around. And they have this conversation. And so Taravangian's like great info. But it did set up something good, which was I love the scene where they actually met and talked. So that's good because what Taravangian experienced in that, in that interlude set that conversation up, which we'll talk about later on.
Yeah,
But
the
one-
interlude.
And I also
I
read
was gonna say, one thing I really liked was he almost said that his compassion was gonna save them, like what we were talking about
Yes,
all the time.
yes.
Yeah.
That it wasn't his intelligence, that it was his compassion was to somehow be able
So
to
it's
save.
still definitely plausible. It's
And-
gonna happen.
it's like,
and-
oh, that's what the cherry was saying.
Yeah.
Something else was cool about that is you got the feeling that even though he's slow, he's not actually not intelligent. His emotional intelligence seems to go up. So he's able to sense Odium's emotions, look through Odium. He sees his weaknesses in that state. So it's almost like it's even more than just his empathy and his knowledge. It's almost like also... That's fine. Anyway, it's almost like his overall empathy is also intelligence in a way.
Yeah, I love how he
Right.
kind of is like looking up at it and he's like, oh, I've been through this madness scrawling all over the walls and stuff. He's like, look for the harsher tones or like the scribbled writing, the like compressed writing. And he's like, oh, there, all the scribbles, all the like scratch outs, like that's where there's something. And he's like, oh, it's around Renarin and Zeth is kind of what he found.
Yes.
But I was also super frustrated, obviously, because I want my prediction to come through. But just the whole scene where he's like, I will fight him. And then immediately he's like, do it. And I'm like, you idiot. What? Like, this would be unexpected. I guess maybe he would be like, if he's going to betray me, it'll be at this
well,
point.
he has to follow his, because now he's like too far along.
Yeah.
So like he has to follow his piece of the agreement or all of that work that he did to like guarantee that Kharbranth would be okay is like out the window. So he's got to kind of effectively tell Dalinar like, hey, here's the deal I made. I had to do it. Even if it was wrong, like he was too wrong about
Do you guys feel relatively confident at this point that he's definitely doing this out of a sense of it's what's right and not a play for power?
I think,
man,
well,
that's a
Dalinar
good-
said that you just want to do this.
question.
You just
Yeah.
want to do
Power.
power.
And I think his responses to that were pretty good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too.
Yeah, I feel like it's not for the power.
Yeah.
You think it's for the power?
Yeah, I
No.
think
Oh.
so. I would agree with that, director. Yeah,
It'd be crazy
I
if
would
at
agree
the end
with
it was
that.
like a twist.
it's it does give a little bit of hope to the readers too that Taravangian might not like Taravangian's evil, but he might not necessarily stay 100% evil. He has a chance to maybe do some damage to Odium because he was able to successfully pull a fast one on Odium when he pulled out that little paper and he's like, oh, he's going to take this paper from me or he's going to ask about it. And immediately Odium takes the bait and grabs it and is like, oh, so like Taravangian kind of got a little whiff that Odium is not all omnipotent. He's not all knowing and all seeing. Like there are ways for you to get around him and exploit his weaknesses. So we might see some of that in the future, and I would almost be I would definitely be down to do a Brett bet if you guys would be up for will he betray Odium? Will he straight up betray Odium?
Well, here's
I feel that's easy.
Yay or nay?
you think so? It's easy.
Well, yeah, definitely.
So he's got to straight up betray him. Does that mean that he's got to find a way to? Is he betraying the pact, or is he got to be like the pact's done now? I can betray him.
Yeah, I would say the pact's done. Now I can betray him, and it might be part of him throwing his own life away. But the end result will be he's clearly betraying Odium. So like he's not, being a blind servant to Odium.
I mean, I guess we're getting too maybe detailed with the Brett bet, but does he have to? Because like the way that I see it is the only way that to me this feels like really kind of like I don't know is if he has to basically know that the situation, because that situation that he was talking with Dalinar about, like, what do you do? If you can basically guarantee that these people that you love stay safe in an almost unwinnable situation, do you take the 1 in a million shot to try and save everyone, or do you take the 100% shot to save these? So I would say in order to make this like really juicy, we kind of have to say that he betrays that
The pact.
safety of Kharbranth.
Okay.
Are you okay with going with that?
I like that,
Okay.
Brett. Yeah, I like that because I mean, like the success or failure of his betrayal definitely is going to play a key point in the story. So I would say that's a good way to parse it. Do we all think that Taravangian's going to try to ignore that pact?
I think that pact is kind of complete already.
Does anyone think he'll be
the pact
loyal
is
to
kind of
Odium?
complete because he's already betrayed Dalinar, and he's given his life away essentially, which is why he was saying goodbye to all his.
Yeah, I
leaders.
guess that's true.
So that pact is over with. So I don't.
But I feel like the only way that I feel like Taravangian would easily betray Odium if he thought Kharbranth was safe. But I feel like it becomes a really interesting question if Kharbranth isn't safe yet. I think he'd sacrifice himself easily. I don't think that he'd sacrifice Kharbranth.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if there's some point where we're going to be like, he sees that, there is a small chance, and now he's willing to take that chance on everyone to save everybody. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because he started to kind of talk about how he's like, I'm making myself useless to Odium at this point. So
Yeah,
has
that's
actually already.
true.
So
Yeah.
that's what he says, and if he's said that, then he must feel that. That's a question. Does he feel he can do anything at this point, and it won't harm Cabran? Because I almost feel like either way, I think he's gonna strike against Odium. He's gonna help Dalinar go against Odium, and it's gonna be in a moment of dull compassion. But
I feel like I don't know about you guys, but when I was reading this part and I'm reading Dalinar's perspective and
when they actually go talk,
I literally feel like this might just be me, but it's like Naruto and Sasuke. Like, oh my god!
Oh, you weeb.
I'm legit serious though. Like,
I don't know who they are.
Like, one of them is like passion, and you can do anything, striving to do what is right or best.
Yeah.
And the other person's like realistic. Do what you can with what you have. I don't know. It was so cool. I was like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Interesting,
Taravangian only feels he's
interesting,
useless
maybe.
because he's no longer the leader of his country. He no longer has any armies. No one follows him.
Mm-hmm.
But like, as a person, is he really useless?
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I feel like he does have a part to play yet.
Yeah.
And there's still moments where he might know something that he doesn't realize he knows that could be detrimental to Odium.
Yeah, and I can see Odium coming back, but like, you still have to do this for me, and he agrees and then betrays him.
And betrays him, yeah.
That's
Yeah, and Odium even said, I feel the most at ease and comfortable talking with you. Like, you're the most honest of my servants or whatever. He said that to Taravangian, which is very ironic.
I wonder...
but that leaves the window open for a really
I wonder...
critical
I just don't want to
betrayal.
forget about this, but we'll come right back to the Brett bet and get it all squared away. But I do wonder if... because he hasn't had a moment of, like, pure genius ever since that day.
Yeah.
It's always been a little bit less. He's had smart days, but he hasn't had a moment of pure genius ever since that day. I'm curious if we're going to get a situation where Odium comes back and he just so happens to be in top fucking performance. And he's talking with him. I know this goes against what Cherry said,
I would say
but
no.
I kind of also like the idea of just having like these two insanely genius people and him just playing the fool and like whittling, I don't know, just like really like puppeteering Odium, this freaking god.
I mean, that would mean that Taravangian would have to act.
Yeah.
And it seems like when the school children that he wanted to murder in the background.
Yeah, he's not gonna
time.
act like.
But I do like that idea
Yeah.
a lot because, like Dalinar, he's afraid to go talk to Taravangian. This isn't in the interlude; it's in their actual scene. But the interlude sets that up, and I like Dalinar didn't want to go talk to him because he's like, everything that freaking guy says is like some kind of a manipulation, and Dalinar is so worried about that. But how funny would it be if he does something like that to Odium instead of Dalinar?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like manipulates him with like.
All right.
little
Yeah, we
statements.
could see that Odium could be manipulated.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
plus, if it's anything like his other series, Odium was once a human.
Yeah.
Well, and they set it up. But like, I know we're going to talk about that whole scene with Jasnah and Wit and how they played that one High Lord.
It was so good.
But Dalinar was like, I wonder if, even though he was like kind of old school about it, like you could tell Dalinar is still old school about some things, and it like bothered him a little bit. But he's like, I wonder if I could ever position Odium that way. Maybe somebody he knows can help him do that. I don't know.
All right.
Apparently, Dalinar just became pattern for a little bit. He's like,
Lies.
How do I lies?
Taravangian, I need some lies.
All right, let's finish up the Brett bet though.
Right.
So, are we going with he has to like somehow betray him in a way that is harmful to Kharbranth, or just betray him in any way?
That
Is it with the
that
risk
betrays
of harm
his
to
pact.
Kharbranth? Or is it like Kharbranth is getting...
Like, I don't know if we'll ever get this much clarity, but I feel like it's a really interesting Brett bet if he has to knowingly know that he's putting Kharbranth in danger because he sees
So he has to know
some
he's putting
hope.
Kharbranth at risk.
But it's Andrew's Brett bet, so whatever he
opportunity
thinks
to
is
save
most interesting.
Everybody. Oh man. Yeah, I would agree with that. Will he have an opportunity to potentially save everyone? And will he take that shot, or will he just say, Kharbranth is safe, I'm going to continue my course as long as Kharbranth is safe. That's all I care about.
Will Taravangian betray Odium to save everyone at risk to Kharbranth?
Yeah, I like it. It's a good wording.
That's a good
Cool.
All right, I will
discriminator.
Start, yes,
Okay.
Because it is. It follows my original bet. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm gonna say no. He'll wheel and deal,
Hitman.
and he'll like help under the scenes. But if it puts Kharbranth at risk, he would not do it.
Yeah. I'm going to also... Man, I love both outcomes, but I'm going to also say no. Because I think Taravangian just makes too good of a villain.
It's funny, like,
He'll wheel and deal.
I don't
so
think
he'll-
he's a bad guy.
I don't either.
Just, like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's
Simple
evil. I
reason.
think he's just very pragmatic and
Yeah.
wants
And I
best
think
results he can get.
I think that point of view
Yeah.
of mine was probably even solidified more when I noticed how much obviously Dalinar was like almost uncomfortable with how much he was much like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like part of what bothers him about Taravangian is how much
Definitely.
he's very Dalinar like his old self. You know what I mean? So, Manny, what's up?
but Dalinar's old self was
Right.
literally terrible.
He was terrible, but I think you can be terrible
Blackthorn.
and not the bad guy if you see it as, honorable in your head. Although I guess everybody does.
Well, that's
but-
every bad guy.
Yeah,
then.
I guess that's every bad guy, but
So many really interesting jokes went right through my head at that moment. None of which I will say out loud.
I'm gonna have to
Manny.
say yes. He is gonna betray.
he's gonna betray.
Ooh.
Okay,
And Brett,
What?
I'm gonna go with yes as well.
Okay.
we got 4 yeses to 2
4
no's?
yeses,
All
yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's not gonna like help under the scenes, but
But he won't risk Kharbranth.
He won't risk
Yeah.
Kharbranth. That's my thought. Anyway, that's a great one because it could go. I could see that going.
I can see it
anyway.
going.
Yeah,
I can
either
see
way.
it going either way, and I could also see us all.
could, yeah.
Well, maybe
I could
not
see
all
that
of us
going.
being wrong, but I could also see Jeff possibly being wrong with us, in him just not betraying Odium. You
Oh,
know?
yeah, it's possible too.
Die in the next chapter.
feel
Yeah,
like-
He was having like a heart attack.
It's
I was like,
the beginning of the
yeah.
very first interlude, he's gonna
Like-
just die of a heart attack.
Oh, that'd be horrible, but so many Brett bets.
We're all just gonna be like, oh,
well, I guess we all lose.
damn.
Well, that would be a no because you guys would be right that he didn't.
Yeah,
betray
you'd win
Odium.
by accident.
Yeah.
I guess
I
I'll
guess,
take it,
yeah,
but
I
you know,
guess we
that's-
will.
I think that says would be inconclusive.
I feel like there's they're definitely alluding towards he's got some pivotal part to play, especially because with them calling out like,
Yeah.
the maddening
There's
script,
potential.
like the crunched lines that he's written over here, and
he's
it's
got
all
one more
around.
sheet of paper he kept too.
Renarin.
That Odium didn't get.
Yeah, it's around Renarin,
does.
and it's around.
Yeah,
he even points
he
out,
does.
he's like, "Oh, where is it? Where's the cramped, scared
Dalinar.
writing that I know so well?" He's like, "There,
Seth.
it's right there. There's Zeth."
Yeah,
Yeah.
And he
it's
was
his
able to see
sword.
that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I
that can
definitely
kill a
got-
guy.
Yes, something's up with the sword for sure.
And it's definitely a setup. I agree with
Yeah.
Josh. It's being set up to something that's gonna happen that's just like a game changer.
Yeah, we don't know how, but
It's inevitably
It's a set.
because Odium also is very afraid of Zeth losing Dalinar and then becoming beholden to his sword, as per my previous Brett bet.
Okay. So
I think so too. I felt so bad for you. I baited you into it. It's such a Hail Mary, and I was like, "You want to come along?"
Too juicy.
don't worry. There's always there's always the chance that Lopin comes back and is the true evil villain.
Yeah.
yeah,
Ayo, Gunjo. Y'all dead now.
he's just stabbing Kaladin in the back.
Well,
Wait,
he is a
Gunjo!
hard. He is a hard.
Okay. This is from my cousin.
So
Sorry, Ganjo, my liege, the mink, ordered your
so
execution.
the cool thing.
I
all
love the
Say
mink for some
Gonjo.
reason. He's just interesting.
The mink is awesome as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and he totally has the heart for yes.
He does
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
hots for
yeah.
Jasnah for sure.
Yeah, maybe he'll be the first one that can
Yeah.
pull it.
Yep.
He's also like, I don't know if they described him this short, but he's like short, little, stocky guy, and Jasnah's like tall,
Tall,
like,
super
elegant.
curvy.
Yeah. It'd be a funny match.
Sounds like a match made in heaven to me.
in the meat size, it definitely is.
Sure, people are where it's at.
So, okay, so that gets us through the interludes, and then we essentially go on a very tightly scoped part 3. It's like essentially just Venli, Navani, and Kaladin.
Yeah.
And
We
and
get
a little bit of Dalinar.
Dalinar.
Oh yeah.
With a little bit of action
glimpses.
thrown in.
There's
Little bit of Dalinar.
there's some glimpses of Dalinar and Jasnah, which
That's
man,
right.
listen,
That's
I
so
actually
nice.
want to start with Jasnah because this shit just makes me really curious. So
Sure.
we definitely find out that Jasnah has absolutely achieved the 4th ideal. She has armor. She controls it. She tries to hide it on the field. However, they didn't give us the physics around how that works.
Yeah.
She just has it, and that's it. She could control it, but there's no, like, what kind of spren was it?
There's
What,
some
you
like
know?
hints that like when at some point she gets like hit and her armor actually like not howls but like screams in pain in her head, and then she feeds it Stormlight and it starts to heal again.
Yeah.
So you get some of that like, okay, these are spren.
Yeah.
But not maybe her sword spren, her high spren.
I think our theory still
Yeah.
stands.
Ink
Each
spren.
high spren has like a sub spren that they get
Yeah.
along with. Like the honor spren is probably the wind spren.
Yeah.
The Stormfather's the glory spren potentially. What the question is, what are the ink sprens
Probably paper spin.
or knowledge spren maybe? And I bet the Shalans it'll probably be the art spren or whatever, the creativity
And I
spren.
hope you get a
yeah.
paper cut.
But
Say that, man.
maybe knowledge spren. I don't know, but it's really curious. We didn't get to see what those spren were.
Yeah.
It's cool though because Jasnah essentially goes on a tear to see what it's like.
To be a soldier.
to be a
she takes
soldier.
it way too far.
Way too far. But
And it was
she learned her
yeah,
lesson, I think.
she
She
did.
listened to Wit afterwards, which was good because she felt like she was like a true Alethi. She's like, I want to fight him and learn like the soldier way, but she
Yeah.
has all these other skills and techniques and abilities.
She's like, I don't want it to be
and-
unfair. And
yeah.
he's like, battle is always unfair. There is never
Yeah.
an equal
Yeah.
battle. Which
That's definitely not what the shard bearer says when he gets shot by an arrow through the visor, like from a fluke shot from a while away. You know?
But yeah, that scene when she got stabbed in the eye, it's like,
Yeah.
like they had her down, pinned her, and they're just stabbing her.
Yeah.
And she's
And
like,
then-
oh, it heals, but it's
Yeah.
like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's
Yeah,
gotta be
that's
painful.
crazy.
But yeah, she.
I think she was thinking about battle and in a more so like a scholar, and she
Yes.
kind of needed
Yes.
to realize that she can't
Yeah, exactly.
have the same thought process.
Yeah.
Like she realized, like this is how I thought battle would be from a scholar, and it's so different. Even in her shard plate, and even with Stormlight enhanced, she was still overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
But she was able to not quite overwhelmed.
But it feels like the way she describes it is like that was the whole reason. She's like, I
Yeah.
can't go with this with just reading about it. I need to have actually experienced it. But
For sure.
the flaw probably more so is just well, I don't even know if it was a flaw because she describes she's like, I don't want to be a beacon showing that I'm out here on the field. So that's why she was suppressing the glow
Yeah,
of her armor
she-
as well as her abilities because she didn't want to be like, oh hey, Queen of Endor
Yeah.
over here,
Yeah.
or Letty,
Yeah.
Alethkar.
Yeah, I thought like if she did suppress the glow, which she did, she could have easily been soul cashing at the same time and really helped out her forces breaking the enemy line. They wouldn't have been prepared.
I agree. I think it was an important lesson for her to do at this
Definitely.
stage. Like she needed to go through that to know her value, but
But not just her value, but putting soldiers in that position
exactly
and how they feel and that
everything
press.
around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
Jeffrey, I think you need to stop. She's perfect and she didn't do anything wrong. So
mistakes
Jasnah's-
upon science.
so Jasnah's the worst. She
By the way,
the worst at being the worst, maybe.
the cool thing, yeah,
It's like the Addams family. I fail at being
it
a
was really
failure.
cool to hear a few things. Like I loved it when Wit came, and they have like essentially just like on Battle. Jasnah saying this, like I know this. Like the shard bearers will come off the front line, take a break, get some water, feed their armor or whatever they need to do. In this case, it was Stormlight for her. And she was, by the way, with Edge Dancer bodyguards, and I could just imagine how cool that scene will be in a movie or a show in the future. She's just tearing down the lines, and you got Edge Dancer bodyguards
Just sliding,
just like doing some
hamstringing
freaking
like
awesome
all
stuff.
these singers.
But
Please, Sanderson, just please hire me to direct one of your books. Just any of them. I love them all. I will. Anyway,
It's gonna be a series, and you can do one of the episodes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Obviously, this is too big for a movie.
but
I know, right?
The cool thing
We
is
already have a
Throw
Kaladin
style.
cast.
yeah, exactly.
we have one. Yeah. So I was gonna say that it's really cool though, because you see how much Wit and Jasnah trust each other. They definitely have a different bond than any. Well, Wit was clearly there to be the king's wit for a reason, and the reason was probably because eventually Jasnah was going to be queen, because they are like teaming up hardcore right now.
I also
and even
feel like-
Dalinar was like eyeballing him, like, are they fucking?
Yeah, I think Wit just feels a little bit closer to her because he probably on all worlds doesn't come across somebody that even kind of like approaches his quick thinking ability. You know, he's just so beyond. He seems so beyond everybody else around,
Yeah.
Well,
and
and-
Jasnah can challenge him in that way because she's very
And they're
intelligent
opposites
as well.
in some
Yeah.
way. Like where Wit will hardly ever be serious. Jasnah is almost
Always
100%
serious.
serious.
Yeah.
So they almost like balance each other.
Yeah.
perfectly.
I also think this is the first time that we actually get a bit more of a view that Jasnah is probably now like way more knowledgeable.
she
than-
knows about the bigger picture. I
Yeah,
think.
because
she's getting.
we start to finally get some of those like tidbits about like, oh, she even met one of the Horde, the Kremlin guys, and how she's starting to have an idea that she knows wits from like supposedly like, super old, probably from like different planets. She knows like that type of stuff. So she's one of the very few people like core storyline characters that know that at this point.
It's starting to sound a lot like that entire second book. She was gone. She wasn't just interviewing Spren.
Yeah.
She might have been all over the effing place, like figuring stuff out.
Do you think
So-
with Wit?
No, probably not.
Because it
with
seems like
Wit.
they met Wit. She met Wit when she came out. Because remember, she comes out and she's like, "Oh, you're here. The king's Wit.
Gotcha,
like this
gotcha.
is weird." And he's
Yeah.
like, "I've been waiting."
But I do think that she probably found out a lot of the stuff that's going on behind the
In
scenes.
Shadesmar?
That
Was she went to the Spend City, Honor City,
she went to
Everlasting
the.
Integrity?
I think actually she went to the High Springs place, too, which would be the arch nemesis of the Honor Spren in those areas. But either way, yeah, she might have been definitely getting some knowledge that eventually her alliance with Wit seems to be very forthcoming about the bigger scenarios. And we find out in that scene that number one, Wit was spied on by a Kremlin pen.
Yeah.
And the question is, for us, those creatures are from another world, the Horde creatures, the Hordelings.
Is it a good one or a bad one?
Is it a good one or a bad one? And Wit
Are you a good
confirmed
witch
that some
or a
of
bad
them
witch?
work with the Ghostbloods.
No, he didn't confirm. He said we think they could be.
Okay.
Because he says there was one thing
I thought he said at least one or two.
I thought he said at
Did he
least
say
one or
at
two
least
work
one?
with
Like a
it.
split.
And so the question is who
That
was
sounds
spying on
familiar.
them? Because if it
Yeah.
was it wow, I can almost talk.
Was it a dick?
No,
It wasn't.
Was it?
It's not being. Never mind.
Was it a good one or a bad one? You know, was it a good one or a bad
It's not
one?
being rubbed on your face, man.
Oh god, we're going to dark places now. Oh geez, it's only episode 1. Yeah, I mean, so the question is, we don't know that, but I don't know that will play a big part in this book. My theory is that's going to play a bigger part, like outside in their story or in another
Yeah.
story.
Oh man, the end of that chapter was so frustrating. It's like, here, let me tell you all these secrets. Oh, new chapter.
That's because it's not for us. It's for
know.
the other book. Yeah. So I suspect Jasnah will end up retiring as queen eventually after she hands it off to a democracy and become a world hopper. That is my Brett bet for the series.
Ooh.
Will Jasnah
Ooh.
become a world hopper.
I think she's gonna like get the democracy started in Lethe, even though she's gonna have to wait till old Grandpa Dalinar croaks a little bit on that one.
I know this is from the last.
He's her uncle,
but-
not her grandpa.
Yeah.
He's Grandpa Dalinar, even though it's her uncle.
Well, so he says, oh, that's it. He says, the bright side is I don't think any of the Sleepless are working with Odium. That's what Wit says.
No, but the Ghostbloods.
Yeah,
different
he says,
story.
I believe it is time, blah, blah, blah. The Ghostbloods are not Rasharan organization. I think you appreciate the danger they present. I don't know if he tells anything.
Well, it's up.
Oh, no, he says Jasnah. I know at least one of them has thrown their lot in with the Ghostbloods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say this was in the last part. I was really surprised how Dalinar was so indifferent to the plight of the slaves. It's like how he's a bondsmith. I'm gonna unite people and bring them together. And it's like the slaves, just leave them be. We can't deal with this right now.
yeah, you know,
Which slaves?
All slaves, because Jasnah is gonna
Oh,
pass a law that
that's
says
a
just
true.
end of
Free 'em,
slavery.
right? Yeah.
And Dalinar was like, no, that's not a good
Yeah.
move right now.
there's a few things that I think are at play here, and I was going to comment on this overall in Dalinar. It has to do with his relationship with Adolin and Jasnah, and
the old school way of
He's just
thinking.
old school. I think the biggest problem is, even though he's made great changes, great strides, like anybody who's 50 plus, they're kind of set in their ways in some form or
Yeah.
fashion, and it takes a lot to shake them out of it. Sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes, not all.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for everybody who's like,
50 plus.
yeah.
I mean, he
not us
also
yet.
he also could potentially just be worried about the realities of the situation. He might think that
Correct.
they'll lose a lot of support. We need everybody all hands on deck. We need as much support as we can get. So he might think that
Maybe now it's
it's
not the time.
Not the time. Yeah.
Although Jasnah,
I think he lacks direction.
Vision.
Where I think Yasna's like, "Hey, we're doing this for the better good because it's right." Where I think Dalinar needs some sort of structure or something to be proven before he makes a decision to change.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be very well too. And
Well, there always has to be like that kind of like just like Jasnah with the battlefield. Like theory and practice are different things, and just because obviously almost everybody, at least all of us, can agree that slavery in theory is 100% completely immoral, in Dalinar's situation, in practice, he's not sure if it's going to end up being worse for everybody, including the slaves, if you do this right now. He needs probably just more convincing to know that this isn't just going to crumble everything, because everything feels so fragile at the time.
yeah, it's like right now we're fighting this war for all of humanity's life. Is like if we do this this thing for abolishing slavery, then it's like you lose all the support of your military. Who knows? That's what he's worried about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Jasnah has a good point where she's like, now is the time to make all these drastic changes, because people they can't do anything really. They just have to kind of go with the flow
with
because
it,
they got to survive and move on.
Yeah.
So there's like conflicting
Right.
forces there, and it's hard to tell until after the fact.
Exactly.
What
The
was the
hard
right
thing to
one?
know is either one of them could be right.
Yeah.
And there's no way of knowing
Yeah.
until you do it. So it almost takes a little bit of just a leap of faith and really trusting your instincts to know which one to do. Sometimes you're just in an impossible to know situation.
Another Brett bet here. Did we do my Brett bet?
We
or
haven't
no?
done it yet.
No, we're still doing
Okay.
Jasnah.
Jasnah's
Jeff
a
is
future
Brett
world
bet.
hopper.
Also,
Jeff,
are you
yes.
gonna combine it with the giving up power for democracy? So I'm gonna be a yes for that.
Ooh, yeah. Okay. Well, in my opinion, she's too much. She's not gonna leave and be a world hopper unless she can relinquish responsibility.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, they go hand in hand. She has to relinquish control to a democracy, and then she could be a world hopper.
I agree with Jeff. I think she will.
Sounds good.
No, and we're gonna team up.
I agree with that as well.
Perhaps.
That
But
sounds
definitely
like a
will.
really good.
Or her and General
Theory.
Demo.
Demo.
Yeah.
So Andrew,
like,
Ben,
who
and
was it?
Jeff are yes.
General Demo
Yeah.
is from Miss.
Emmanuel?
My name is
I
General
love
Demo.
Jasnah like so much,
Yeah.
and because I know that she's such an easy character to like, I don't know that she's gonna make it through the series.
I was wondering about that as
Yeah.
well, Manny, but I think that I think that the fans would just be too
One fan.
Dumbledore.
You're giving her
with the
Daryl
like,
status? Daryl status.
I just hope
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson doesn't listen to the fans.
Yeah.
And plays his story.
Yeah.
No matter who dies.
I think that she's just an easy character to like. That
I would agree, Manny.
I'm not sure
I
that
would
she's
agree.
gonna make it through the whole series, and that's just so I'm gonna have to say no.
Yeah.
No.
Ooh.
I'm also.
She
Okay.
dies.
I thought about that as well, Manny, but I'm still leaning yes because I think she's just
I love
too
her.
damn
I fucking love her.
too damn
All right,
awesome.
Josh.
I also I
Yeah.
don't like the condition. Well, I'm gonna say no. Yeah, I don't think she's gonna.
I'm gonna go yes.
Ooh, I like it. We
Just
got
because
some
I
mix.
like that she'll be a world hopper.
4 and 2.
And then her and Wit will just go hopping worlds.
Or General Demir.
Nah, Wit.
Oh my
Wait.
god, just no.
And then they're gonna have like a little fling, and then they're gonna be
like
like,
that
we
they-
actually work better as friends.
All right, that actually goes perfectly for the next bet that I was going to say, which is that I also bet that Jasnah and the mink hook up.
Oh, the link.
Yes, then the mink.
What? No.
That's my Hail Mary. Jasnah and the mink hook up.
I guess
The mink works his
Bonus
Cardassian
magic.
magic.
Oh, it's Sardassian witchcraft, evil witchcraft.
Andrew's just gonna be like, I don't know. I feel like drinking. Sure. All right, Jeff's a yes. All right, everybody else no. Right?
Yeah,
No.
no. Manny's a no. Ben.
You guys all know?
Yeah.
Andrew's a
Yeah,
no.
no.
I'm thinking.
Andrew's like Jasnah's too smart to be falling for those traitors.
The Herdazian, the
Herdazian
Herdazian mink
traitors.
general is the
Those
general the only
untrustworthy
guy who
types.
is on the same level of general, if not better, than Dalinar.
I'm
as
gonna
a general.
say yes. I'm gonna go with Jeff.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm gonna say no only because I
that's
really
true.
like the world
Nice.
hopper one, and I don't think they can go hand in hand.
Oh, dude, you
No.
could have a fling.
I'm saying like just hook up. They don't have to get married.
That's all I said. I said
Oh,
she's
they're
gonna hook up.
hook up.
That's all I said.
To me,
have
the
a-
only possibility is like if they did it strategically, like needed to.
No, that
form an alliance of
Herdazian.
some-
You're forgetting who the Herdazians are.
Wait, Jeff, you're not including rape
that's
because
racist.
that guy's sneaky. He's gonna like sneak in and just like she's like sleeping.
I don't know where you going, Jeff.
The Herdazians are modeled after
I
the
love how they-
Latins of the world,
they-
and they got that romance thing going.
Don't do that to us. Don't do that to us.
I wanted to say it for Manny.
It makes like no,
They
you're
also-
a
I
born
don't
eater.
sound
Say
Australian.
Latins, I mean Latinos.
You know, old Latin,
They
English.
also sound.
You know those
They all
Romanians.
sound. All the Herdazians sound Australian. And I like that they gave the Thalens voices this time too, and they gave them all French
Oh,
accents. Did you get that? Like really jumped out at me, and I was like, "Oh man, I have to retrospectively remember all of
In,
those
French
Thalen
accents.
characters in the interludes as French people now with like super long eyebrows."
It's perfect because they could like,
Instead of the mustache, they're
talking
doing
all
the
the way.
eyebrows.
right. They have their eyebrows now.
Handlebar eyebrows.
Right.
all right, we're getting out of control.
I'm le
now.
du fromage.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. So, at risk
no.
of going further and being totally ridiculous, I think the other thing that I want to talk about while we're on Jasnah is the whole setup scene, which was pretty good because her and Wit set up,
Yeah.
and Dalinar is talking about how they have one of the High Princes who's still kind of an old school moron left. And if you recall, my memory may not serve me perfectly here, so maybe one of the Pedia fans will help us out here. But I'm pretty sure that Adolin's friend, who betrayed Adolin and joined Sadeas in that duel where they won all the shard plate, is the son of this guy.
I believe so.
And when they
Oh.
and that's why he was so willing after all of this went down. He felt bad about it, number one. Number two, he's kind of Adolin's buddy, but he felt bad about it enough that they kind of set this up with Jasnah to overthrow the dad, who's a clear asshole. Because remember, if you recall, the dad kind of coaxed the son into doing that.
I'm not sure if it was his friend or just the son who he insulted one-on-one.
Okay. It was definitely, I thought it was the friend, but I could be wrong. And if you remember, the friend actually fought with him on a few plateau runs in book 1 even. But it's hard to tell.
I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of those 4 people. Definitely.
Yeah. And I didn't look it up, and I'm sure the information is out there, but I figured like I'd just bring up that theory, and if it's right, it's right. But I thought that was interesting and probably a good thing, because the guy who, if it is the guy that I'm thinking of that Adolin talked to, he seemed, kind of like a Lethe, certainly under a lot of pressure from his father, but not a total dick. Like he could come to the good side kind of thing. And so him being the new High Prince seems pretty good. Notice how Dalinar couldn't, no matter what Jasnah said, Dalinar couldn't let him go and be like a cook boy. Like he had to give him like an estate. He's like too old school. He's like, he couldn't do it.
Yeah. Man, I was so frustrated with Dalinar when he tried to stop the duel. Yeah. Like, no, why are you trying to ruin all his plans? Just step in and let him walk away, just like with Sadeas, who walked away without the duel.
Yeah.
The best thing was Dalinar in his mind when Jasnah went over and was asking questions to the mink and giving him like recommendations for
like,
show, but
weird.
but he's immediately thinking like, oh, those are terrible recommendations. Like they were like completely terrible, and the mink was like entertaining it. Oh, good idea. Yeah, I'll think about that.
I also think it's kind of funny, because I would say that usually, because we, all know Dalinar so well now at this point, usually I would say anytime that he's like saying something, there's like an aura of like, oh, he's probably right. He's pretty honorable and he's trying to do what's right. He's pretty right. But because it was Wit and Jasnah, I was like, Dalinar, shut up. I was like, just let it happen. Wit knows what's going on. Get out of the way, Nick.
Right. All right.
Right.
Any other comments on that before we move off of Jasnah?
I agree with Brett. Whenever he was talking, I was like, I don't know what you thought this was, but this is not that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Are we wrapping up Dalinar too? Because
actually, that's a great point. We might as well. We're wrapping up Jasnah. We might as well migrate to Dalinar. Now,
there's only one kind of aspect of Dalinar that's like there's like that part at the end that's like quite separated his own shit.
But there was a few speculative moments.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up a few. I'm gonna let Captain take the lead on this. Let me, instead of doing a Randall Flag, instead of summoning Randall Flag, which takes me too long to edit, in the new programming, until I get my new computer, it's too editing. And I'm gonna let Randall Flag stay away, and I'm gonna go grab us a refresh.
Cool. How about Jeffrey? Yeah, me a refresh too.
I will. One here.
I was drinking tea, but I'd have to brew some more, so I'll wait till the end of the episode.
Okay. And you guys are on your own, because I can't use my magic. I'm not Randall Flag.
So Andrew, get us rolling on Dalinar.
Yeah, this was just one very minor thing that I just wanted to point out, because it was kind of a touching thing. That I really liked from Dalinar's perspective, and that was the scene. It was a very brief scene where he was onlooking the care that was being provided to Elokar's son. And Elokar's son was Gavinor, who, if we remember from the second book, was kind of abandoned because Elokar's wife kind of went cuckoo back in Kholin, and the son was kind of just left to his own devices, even though he was technically a royal heir. And he's now safely with like Dalinar and Jasnah and all that. And there was one section where Dalinar was kind of just reflecting on how Adolin and Renarin were as kids, and how pretty much all kids are, where they love to play, and how they, they just want to have fun.
Go to bed.
They want to stay awake, and they never want to go to bed. And this poor Elokar's son Gavinor was the opposite. Like, he's so serious about even just play stuff. He's just completely serious, and he keeps his little sword with him at all times. And he's ready to go to bed at 5 p.m.
He's like I should
right
go
after
to bed,
dinner.
I'm
It's like,
tired.
oh my god, dude, this. Yeah, it's like, oh, this poor kid. I hope that he's gonna grow up to be an awesome, like, badass, and will somehow become a major character closer to the end of
Maybe
this
in
whole
the next
saga.
series, the next 5 books, he'll be
you
like
know,
a teenager or something.
Yeah, he could be potentially important for all we
Yeah,
know.
that-
The series is going to go on for so long. He may be a big player at some
Core
point.
player.
Who
It might
knows?
be one of the
right?
democratic
Yeah,
rulers of
Yeah.
the new Elethkar.
He's who's going to take
right.
Yasna's spot before she goes world hopping.
It's possible. It's possible. I
Yeah.
mean, he's just a tiny little kid.
I mean,
but,
in this series, but
yeah,
the next 5
I
books,
The next
mean,
5 books, yeah,
a time skip.
probably.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
I also really
So that's
liked
all I
that
wanted to point
moment.
out about Dalinar's
I
section.
think in the same scene that you're talking about, where he was like talking about his mom and how he's like, "Oh, my mom was crazy and a bad person," and
Yeah.
Dalinar was just like, "No."
Yeah.
And I just kind of like that moment from Dalinar because I mean I don't know,
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of maybe misguided, but you do kind of still get this feeling of like they're a little bit in the old school, you know. So like they don't have like modern medicine. They have like
Right.
now they have people like healing with like powers and stuff like that. But before that, it felt like very kind of like, you know, colonial times medicine, you know, where they're still like, you know, get the antiseptic and some bandages, you know. So it's like
Get the
it's
leeches.
interesting to see people kind of like understand, I think, mental issues to a level that probably even with our modern medicine we don't understand or are as accepting
Can't
of
do
it,
anything
you know,
about
can't
it,
do
yeah.
anything about it. Instead of just being like, yeah, she was crazy and a psychopath, he
Yeah.
was just like, you know, no, she was like a good person that, you know,
Well,
had
I
something
think-
happen, didn't he?
I thought
Didn't he
that
say
it was.
Didn't he say
I
that?
thought it
He
was
said
that.
she was
Right.
Possessed. They
yeah.
got possessed. Yeah.
Yeah, which I
And-
think is pretty accurate because I thought she
Yeah.
she got influenced by one of the unmade.
Yes.
Right.
So
I
it
don't
wasn't
think she was
necessarily
a
that she
great
was a
person
bad
before
person.
that
She just got
necessarily.
influenced.
But
Yeah,
she
that's
was
what I'm
definitely
saying.
possessed.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm saying. And I like how he explained
Yeah.
that to the kid because the kid was under the assumption that she was a bad person. Didn't or am I
Yeah.
No,
me
misremembering?
too.
Okay.
Well, yeah, he said like, "Oh, it was mommy's fault." You know
Yeah.
what I mean, like she was bad or
Yeah.
whatever.
And he's like, no.
He's like,
whether-
no, it's not her fault. You know?
Whether she was fully influenced or she was kind of like dark and embraced the power, kind of like embracing the
Yeah.
dark side, doesn't matter in my opinion because better that the kid is
Doesn't hate her mom. his
yeah
mom.
coaxed to the better
But-
belief.
Yeah, I thought that she was
Yeah.
like power hungry and thought this
Yeah.
was a way to gain more power. But once she took hold of that power, possessed her and changed her, kind of like the same
Yeah.
as
Moash.
Moash.
Or, well, Moash is like more like putting it off. Ooh, that's a
I guess
or-
maybe I'm misremembering the stuff that happened with her, but my interpretation was that Moash was more like coaxed to the dark side by his dark side, and I thought that she was just straight up kind of taken over. But maybe I'm
we
misremembering
knew
that. Yeah,
Elokar
I think I
brainwashed.
agree with you, Brad. I thought that
Yeah.
she was just taken over,
yeah,
and like I don't think that she was a
Yeah.
bad mother or a bad person to begin with.
Yeah, and she might have been even though she was power hungry, she might have still been a good mother.
yeah.
Even Elokar said like he wanted his wife to be that because there's this one flashback situation where Elokar's talking to himself. I think it must be in obviously book 2, but Elokar says like he even goes, you know, my mother didn't like my wife, but she didn't understand why I needed her. I needed her ambition and her power and support because it got me going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's something we didn't get to see. We didn't see that whole background. But, you know, even if she is that way, and Navani doesn't like her, you know, Elokar saw something there that, you know, made a difference. So,
Yeah.
you know, but I think it was a good approach.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
Yeah.
one thing that I want to touch on with Dalinar too is well, before we get to probably the very end section of Dalinar, but he seems to be kind of pushing towards
Sure.
this like I don't know about my powers, and he's trying to like learn, and he almost feels almost a little like not jealous, but also like everyone else kind of like picked all this stuff up. But I really like the scene where he kind of like touches Nail.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, he gets like Nail just kind of all of a sudden like freezes and he sees the lines going out connecting everyone. And especially later when he's reaching out and he's touching the soldier and he's like, I can feel like these small distinct lines. I think the Oath Pact is definitely something like I don't think the Oath Pact's going to be a solution, so I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I think he's going to be able to, like, that's going to be something he's going to develop, and it's going to turn into an awesome thing. And
I think an Oath Pact is a terrible idea.
Yeah, what I think is Taravangian. I think it's going to be... He's
In a moment of compassion.
Exactly. No, he's going to use either that connection with Taravangian to, like, somehow see the connections at Taravangian and the things that he's built, to be able to kind of like see holes or something. Okay. I think like that's going to be an important.
Well, wouldn't it be kind of interesting if he does do that? If Dalinar is capable of seeing all the connections that the smart version does because they're dormant inside him, even though he can't consciously access them.
Yeah, think about it.
I do think it was really interesting that the Stormfather describing how it's like, oh, that would be pointless. Like you can't see. Like what would be the point of tracing this? You know. Connections have different strengths and weaknesses, and bonds have different strengths and weaknesses, and that description was really good. It's definitely going to come to play.
But that description also, to me, felt a bit like a misdirection, because he's like, oh, like, what use is it? Like, but if you really think about it, like, deduction abilities like that can be, like, really useful.
But I think that's where it'll come into play.
Well, could you imagine if he would have had that power before? And he reaches out and touches Taravangian, and it's like, oh, I see something going to Odium.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be a huge thing. Like, I don't think that's at all like this. Because it seems like even Stormfather's like, it's not that great of a power. Like, all you can see is the two ends. And
I don't think the Stormfather said it wasn't going to be that great of a power. I think he just said, like, be wary. Limited, some connections are stronger than others. Like, you don't want to necessarily go down a rabbit hole of...
Yeah,
but
I think it's going to be
my brother's mom's wife's.
You also have to remember though, the Stormfather doesn't know
that's
what
true.
Dalinar's powers are.
He doesn't.
So he's
first of
his idea of what is important and what is not is really not relevant. I think I agree, Josh. I think that it's definitely something that was brought up for a reason.
Yeah, for sure.
I also think that what Jeff brought up though is also a good point though. You do have to be careful about coming to conclusions that may not be there just based off of a slight connection or
but that's not to say I don't want to say that he's not going to use it. I think there is a purpose to it being here in the story. I agree with you guys there. I just don't know where it's going yet. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
The Stormfather too, Manny brings up a good point, because he is, and he says it all the time, the first of his kind, because he's not just a normal bondsmith. He's a bondsmith with a deeper building of honor in him.
Well, it almost feels like he's not even, because the original bondsmith was bonded to honor.
No, so the original bondsmith got his power solely through the blade, the sword. The heralds got their original lashings through the blade. Unless they joined their own order, and the only one, Niall said he's the only one who joined his own order.
I was going to say, the bondsmiths, everyone before Dalinar, somehow honor limited the power.
Yeah, because I thought
they were so powerful apparently that Honor's like, I'm gonna cut you off from some of your.
Oh, but now Dalinar is like completely free reign bondsmith, and he's got more of honor.
But I thought there was a conversation that there were three. There was there was the sibling, there was honor, and there was cultivation.
The Night Mother is the other spren that can do a bondsmith.
Oh, it's not cultivation then.
Cultivation is the god. So like Honor's number one spren was the Stormfather. Cultivation's like biggest spren
maybe I'm
is the
thinking
Night
wrong,
Mother.
because I thought Honor or the Stormfather only came about because Honor died. He was the ghost of Honor.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he was like a shadow of what existed.
He is now, but the Stormfather before that was just the Stormfather. Big spren who is just a storm spren that had a lot of power and was a very, very mighty spren that shaped the world. But it was not until he didn't have like a shard of honor until Honor died and endowed the rest of his power onto the Stormfather. Stormfather has even said multiple times, before this, I was just the storm.
So Honor created a Horcrux.
Wow, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense.
Teach me something, Jeff. Teach me something.
But the Night Mother can do one and the sibling can do one. Because that's the combination.
and the
of
siblings
both of
are
them.
too. Yeah.
Now, I always thought like maybe one of Odium's converted spring
Unmade,
could do a bondsmith, but I was wrong. That's why I thought 3. But which I want to get into at some point. But apparently it's 1, dad and mom, and then the sibling, which is
the daughter.
the combined of both of them. So, and I'm really curious because the sibling, which we'll get into after this, but the sibling seems like such an interesting character. I want to know what that bondsmith. She's like, I waited forever to find the right bondsmith, and I'm like, was your bondsmith as whiny as you?
Jeff, why do you hate the sibling?
I don't hate the sibling. I don't hate the sibling.
she's
I feel like you do.
She's just really annoying.
They do always give her a whiny
do they?
voice. Always.
You know what? I think she's supposed to be like a child, kind of. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's my opinion. But anyway.
Anyway, we'll get to that later.
So, Dalinar, do you think that he's going to have a positive or negative influence on Elokar's kid?
Oh,
Positive.
Right.
Yeah.
Positive. Hope. Yeah.
I'm positive.
Yeah.
Got to be positive.
Yeah.
He's probably the only one with any
Now,
influence
yeah.
over that kid,
Yeah.
because otherwise he'd just be.
No,
Yeah.
I mean Navani
Tossed
is also
aside.
there.
Yeah.
She's actually his
Well,
grandmother.
she's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
Well, no, not physically.
Do you
there
guys
right now.
find it weird? I don't know if this is weird or not. I'm not against it, calling him Grandpa Dalinar. But
because it's uncle.
technically
Great
it's
uncle.
his great uncle, Dalinar. You know, I'm totally okay with the grandpa role that he's picking up there. But I do feel
surprised
that
he
there's-
is.
And also, I do feel, and we'll get into this more with Navani because she has some more memories of Galavar, which did not sound awesome on his point. It also sounds like he was way ahead of the game. Like he
Wait,
knows way more.
He
than
is the grandfather because he's married to Navani.
He's a step grandfather.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So,
You know what I mean? It's
He's
kind of
great
a-
uncle and grandfather.
Oh,
I just hope that I know Navani.
Hello.
We find out Navani did love Gavilar at one point, and she definitely did not have a good relationship towards the end. But like, I hope they don't just like just sweep Galavar under the rug. He never existed. This kid never
Yeah,
needs
Jeff,
to know about him.
we're all convinced that he's a douchebag. You are just still rooting for him somehow. I don't know.
No, I'm not. I do think he's a douche, but he's also had something else going on. Like he was way,
No,
like
I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I don't like it when
your-
they sweep like random like facts under the rug. Like,
At least he's not like.
so Elikar's my dad and Dalinar's my grandpa. No, well, kind of.
Yeah.
Wait, how do we?
At least he's not.
When mommy
Call me
loves
Dad.
daddy and uncle.
You see, when 3 people love each other.
Well, 2 actually kind of hate each other.
Let me tell you about the 2 birds and the bee.
Anyway, so funny. All right.
You guys are so wrong.
Yeah.
Calling it like it is.
Man, I was thinking about this because we talked about Gavilar. That how did he get those stones? Was it him who actually traveled, or at this other theory, the Ghostbloods were also infiltrating the Sons of Anna to give those to Galavar to expand the needs on Moash.
Dude,
The unlucky domain
they
kinda,
say,
like, push out.
where did I hear? Like one of our
They
commenters.
certainly didn't seem difficult to
Yeah.
infiltrate.
Well, remember when we were like, "Oh, the Sons of Honor are one of these groups," and then later we find out the Sons of Honor were just like a very like weak.
Well, they were strong with Gavilar, but once he died, they lost all power.
But now we're thinking that Gavilar was just using them, and he might have even been joined with the Ghostbloods. Who knows?
He
we
might.
don't even
I guess
know.
I was thinking like maybe it was a Ghostblood or Ghostbloods
Yeah.
infiltrated. But I thought he was the leader of the Sons of Honor almost, and like, he was like the power behind them.
Well, he definitely knew way more, and he was not nice to Navani about the fact that she couldn't figure some things out. And Navani, it seems like when I read Navani, I'm like, dude, this lady is clearly why Jasnah is as smart as she is. Navani is so smart.
And like
Yeah.
Navani is probably like a good portion of why the entire like Alethi Empire didn't just immediately crumble.
Yeah.
Because she ran the freaking entire country while he was off with these secret
Yeah.
meetings, and she's probably the only one who could be like, we're gonna keep this all stitched together. Like, without her.
Yeah.
Dude, I got so much respect for Navani, and I see where Jasnah gets all of her capabilities from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to say that Gavilar doesn't have capabilities. Clearly,
No, but he's
He
an
had
idiot.
them.
He's an idiot.
well, we don't know. I mean, he was clearly doing something much bigger, and he had enough capability and charisma to like get this whole thing going. But then after he got it, there was something like bigger that he was going to, and I just don't know what that was. We don't know what that was. We know he was very douchey about it for sure. But Navani,
He had a big ego.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we don't know why, but we did have a commenter talk about Braze, like maybe he had a way to get there. But then we have this like weird power. So that's what I was this is like perfect branch, because we talk about Gavilar, but then Navani is studying the tones.
Real quickly, one last thing I want to
Sure.
say before we get off of Dalinar is and this may be jumping towards a bit of the end, but I think it still fits well, is I wonder the kind of like him riding the Stormfront, similar to how Kaladin had done, and
great
pushing
comment.
against, like, I feel like I'm nervous that this is gonna turn into a point of contention, or it's gonna be something that's gonna cause a dip in the bondsmith, like his relationship with the Stormfather, before it eventually springs back and becomes even better than it was before. Because he really, on this whole ride, he has a few things that seem to really be an affront to the Stormfather. Like, just like, you're better than this, don't kill those two people. Or like, why haven't you try and like save them? You need to protect. He's like, no, I'm a effing storm. Like, what are you thinking? Like, I destroy things, but I'm bringing life to Roshar. I think that was such a kind of a cool scene, but it also was very...
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I completely forgot about this.
It's not funny, but I had to giggle a little bit the way that it came across in the audiobook. It was almost like Dalinar was like almost like half, like mid-sentence. You don't need to kill. He's like, I've already done it.
They're already dead.
They're already dead. They were crushed by a rock.
Yeah, like 2 minutes ago. Like, he's like,
Aww.
But you bring up a good point, because it has to do with this, like, Dalinar,
Is
like,
expecting change.
relaxing his, like, just because he's bonded to his friend, this friend is part of nature.
Yeah.
Nature itself,
Yeah.
which is not a nice place.
yeah.
Nature
Survival
is
of
this
the
cycle.
fittest.
It's very different, and I think it's going to be an interesting source of contention there.
Yeah.
But I will say that I agree with Dalinar to an extent. He does have to be careful about trying to make something other than what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also believe that there were probably a lot of people, much like Dalinar, that use the same excuse. This is who we are. This is nature. This is survival of the fittest. This is what we do. And I think that if you constantly look that way, like, you do have to be honest with yourself of who you really are, but you also have to push yourself to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know?
I was gonna say one of the things earlier in the book, Syl says Ben think they don't change the same for centuries because the piece of eternity, and she was realizing that she does change,
Yeah.
and that she has
Choices
new ideas and becoming a different person. or
But I
different
think
friend.
she realizes that she changes because her bond with the
Bond.
humans
it
gets
really helped. Yeah.
stronger, and that's how she grows. That's what she gains out of that
But
relationship.
exactly the same with the Stormfather. He's bonded to Dalinar, that he can grow and become more
Yeah.
than just a storm.
One thing
Well-
that surprised me in that interaction too, though, is pretty much afterwards, like, Stormfather was like, I'm nature. I literally, in order to do this, I bring like creme, but I bring life across Roshar.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is what I am. You cannot change it. But Dalinar seems to be like, he goes silent afterward, like almost like he's thinking, or
Yeah.
he's like wondering about it. So that made me a bit like, that's interesting. I almost felt like that was going to be like a lesson for Dalinar, but
I
it
think it's
surprisingly
been-
to me turned into
Unless,
almost like the Stormfather being like,
Stormfather.
That's
Which-
happened 3 times so far throughout the books, where Dalinar literally lectured to submission the Stormfather.
But I think the part where it really gets interesting is when he finally goes back and the Stormfather's like, they pass and the Stormfather's like, nope, we just keep moving. And he's like, no, I want to go back. And Stormfather's like, no, we don't do that.
He's like, onward.
Yeah. And Dalinar fights against it. The interesting thing is the first way that they describe it was the Stormfather wasn't angry or hurt, but he was like almost curious, like what is happening? Like how this is weird because Dalinar actually like goes against the Stormfront.
Yeah.
But it's weird because almost immediately after that at the end of the chapter, the Stormfather is like, what have you done? Like not like that you've done something bad, but it's like this is not the way of things. Like that was a bad thing to do, which was really interesting because they almost seem to go back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, was that like a new thing that the Stormfather was like, oh, this is interesting, I didn't know you could do it, or he was like, no, that's bad.
Yeah, he says like the second time you've hurt me like this.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
said like that. Yeah, exactly. It was like you've hurt me.
Well, the other
which I
time
thought
that he
was
did
really
it, he
interesting.
forced the Stormfather into a Shardblade to open the Oath
Yes.
gates,
Mm.
and he forced it. He forced him, and it like hurt him kind of because their wills were not aligned.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out because, you know, Odium in his storm, he could hide ships in his storm and
Yeah.
do all kinds of stuff with it because he has this control over it. So maybe the Stormfather does have to get off his ass and join a side.
Maybe.
You know, like, hey,
But
we got to
also-
help these people win this war because one storm could be used, but maybe there's a reason
Yeah.
he's that way.
But yeah. It's so hard to know, like, you know, us being like martial arts instructors, we come across this. You gotta push a student, but at the same time, if you push him too hard, you end up doing more damage than good. You gotta find
break
that
'em.
balance, you know?
Yeah,
And I
you
feel like
gotta
Dalinar is
He's right on that.
he's not fantastic about balance. he's pretty big personality, and he probably feels like, you know, why can't I just order this guy around like everybody else?
It is kind of funny that he's bonded to the Stormfather, the most
Yeah.
powerful spren pretty much in existence, and he feels like he should order him around.
Yeah.
Like that is, if that's not saying something when everybody else describes Dalinar, I get it. Because like they're always like, when you're in a room with this guy, it's like you're just overwhelmed.
I will.
And-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say he's sitting there and he's lecturing the Stormfather
Yeah.
into submission.
Yeah,
and if it
but I
was
will say-
honor, he would be lecturing honor.
But
into
I feel like
submission,
there have also been times where the Stormfather has had to lecture Dalinar, and he's had to learn some hard
True,
truths, you
very
know.
true.
So there is a bit of give and take with that, and I feel like a lot of that has happened with Syl and Kaladin as well, where they're like
Yeah.
teaching each other and pulling from each other. So maybe Dalinar's just trying to figure that out. You know, maybe you do have to be as big and bolsterous as Dalinar to move something like a
Stormfather.
Stormfather.
Yeah.
You know.
That could be part of it because I feel like Kaladin and Syl's relationship is so much like healthier, intimate, healthy,
Intimate.
I
deep,
think
like-
they're.
Well,
I think that their bond is a lot more organic.
It's
Yeah.
more, it's, well, not only that, but it stemmed from Syl having a deep desire to go hunt down him,
yeah,
to go find him and draw almost like a connection before they even connected. And she kind of like already had this fondness of him and this relationship with him before he even knew she existed. She was sitting there kind of watching what was going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that kind of kept their relationship the way it is. Whereas like Dalinar and the Stormfather almost wants nothing to do with him. He's just like, fine, I'll do it. You know, so it's definitely different.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you find it, Josh?
So the thing what he says is the Stormfather actually says, "You have hurt me, Dalinar. This is the second time you have done so. You push against our bonds, forcing me to do things that are not right." But so when I first read this, I was like, "Oh man, like this feels like it's going to be a bit of a contention." But
Yeah.
actually, the more I read, like now going back, he says, Dalinar's like, "Yeah, but is it wrong? Your what do you say? Dalinar says, I push you to stretch. That is always painful. So kind of like this is a growing lesson, lesson type thing. So it's very something that like at first you kind of think like the Stormfather's like, no, this is the way of the world. But Dalinar is saying, no, actually, like you need to like grow, which I think is also a bit funny because it's almost exact same situation between him and Jasnah, where he's just like, no, this is the way things are. And he's like, no, you need to grow and learn. And then he turns around, he's like, Stormfather, you need to grow and learn.
Sanderson's so good.
Why doesn't this
so
stupid
good.
Storm get it?
Yeah, I know. You just need to grow and learn.
He's
Even the-
so stubborn.
Even the subtle hypocrisy that exists in everyday life, in every form and fashion,
Situation.
Sanderson can
Yeah.
capture right there. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's a really cool scene.
So I think we're getting close to like closing episode 1 out.
Yeah.
I think there's probably one more topic to talk into before we jump into the other arc, which is Urithiru.
Yep.
Urethra.
Urethra. I also had like a shower thought that I want to bring up before the end as well.
Yes. So let's do. We already talked about Ghostbloods. I think okay.
this
Let's
is good.
do the shower thought.
Let's do the shower thought.
So this is it's not really anything that I think has any like real significance, but I just thought it was kind of interesting because the new World of Warcraft like first thing came out today, and so I was thinking about this idea because a lot of the big guilds are raiding right now, and I thought it was interesting because I kind of noticed like a little bit of a connection between the idea of, I think it's interesting that in video games that we, the player, the quote unquote good guys, are able to fight a boss, and then if we die, we reborn and fight again, and we can learn from our experience until we overcome it. And I think that it's funny that that basically happens to what we've up to this point kind of see as the bad guys, where the bad guys are the ones that are constantly being reborn with new information and new experience, fighting what we think are the good guys. And I think that that's just kind of
it's almost
an
like
interesting little shower thought.
that's actually an awesome thought because it's almost like you're just respawning. Like
just
this
respawning,
is, especially with our good freaking Kaladin's new arch nemesis.
The pursuer.
It's like he's just hell-bent on beating this boss.
He's like, when you're sprint bonds a new one, I'll come back and kill that.
Yes.
It's like, wow, you are so stubborn.
Man.
The boss that you can't just kill.
And I can't wait to talk about that because I think Kaladin's guerrilla warfare epic has been excellent so far. And I want to talk about some of the strategies that he's been utilizing
All right.
All right.
as a solo man. So, to the Boygi, and
the
we will
Boygi.
get to
To
part
the boygi.
Part 3
the Boygi.
discussion 2.
Cheers.